A man wanted to start a race war, connected it to the presidential election, needed to make sure he did it before the general presidential election in order to make it, well, successful. Put up a picture full of mass. Hell of a background, a lot of twists and turns. This is the reality that we're in. An Arizona man was arrested in May for planning a mass shooting in Atlanta, targeting African Americans in the city. He did this, he wanted to start a race war, according to the allegation. Mark Adams Prieto was accused of selling rifles to people to provide weapons to begin a race war ahead of the 2024 presidential election cycle. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, he was indicted Tuesday by a federal grand jury. They looked at the evidence and said indict, following a months-long investigation by the FBI. And his arrest in mid-May. An affidavit submitted in court by members of the task force led by the FBI in Phoenix, Arizona, detailed how the investigation began in October of 2023. Let me give you the background. According to the affidavit, a reliable source reported that a man later identified as Prieto, quote, expressed a desire to incite a race war prior to the 2024 United States presidential election, end quote. The affidavit says the source told FBI agents that they'd spoken to Prieto at various gun shows over 3 years, eventually including political conversations. During the past year, his comments became, quote, suspicious and alarming, according to the affidavit, quote, including advocating for a mass shooting and specifically targeting Blacks, Jews, or Muslims. The source told the FBI agents that Prieto believes that martial law will be implemented shortly after the 2024 election, and that a mass shooting should occur prior to the implementation of martial law. And asked the source in late 2023 if they were ready to kill a bunch of people, end quote. Now, there's a lot more to this story. I'm going to give you all of it. It's difficult to listen to, especially when you realize the measured calculation, the coordinated plan, this strategic context of this entire ordeal. Where would he get the idea that a president would declare martial law? Where does that come from? That has been considered unconstitutional in many frameworks and decisions, but he believes this will happen. Why? Because martial law in its purest form is simply a suspension of the Constitution. You see, Donald Trump already said he was going to suspend the Constitution. He did not say it as diplomatic as I just did. This is where he gets the idea from. There's a direct radicalization permeating from Trump once again. I bring that to your attention because here are some guarantees, some assumptions you can make. This individual is a Trump supporter. This individual self-identifies as a Christian evangelical. This individual has been a conservative for many decades. This individual probably says he believes in Jesus. This person is part of MAGA. There's more. With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. The FBI in the affidavit that this showed Prieto's desire to recruit people to help him carry out an attack. The investigation by federal agents found that Prieto worked as a gun show vendor. This part is important because all of it was legal at this point. A gun show vendor in Prescott, Arizona, where he sold numerous firearms from his personal collection, which, by the way, is allowed at these gun shows routinely. The source told the FBI that Prieto also likes to conduct trades off book through cash or trade to avoid possible issues or interactions with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Once again, these off-book trades are not necessarily illegal. As a matter of fact, in the state of Georgia, one of the last data sets we have about firearm sales in the state of Georgia, they are sold without the need of any paperwork, person to person. You can do that based on the current laws that exist primarily in conservative states. Now, if you sell a car, well, the car is regulated. You cannot simply sell a car with no paperwork. It's not allowed. But you can sell a gun, no problem. No paperwork, no issue. There's more. At the end of 2023, agents contacted the person running the Arizona-based Crossroads of the West gun shows, where Prieto was a vendor, who confirmed his status there, matching a description given to agents by their confidential source. The FBI put Prieto under surveillance from January to March. At a gun show in mid-January, undercover agents met with Prieto and their confidential source. While Prieto only made small talk with the source and the undercover agents on the first day of the gun show, the next day was a different story. Prieto spoke about his plans for an attack. The affidavit says, Prieto divulged his plan to commit crimes of violence against African Americans in Atlanta, Georgia, specifically. Prieto told the source and undercover agents that he wanted to help to carry out a mass shooting at a yet-to-be-determined rap concert in the city, according to court documents. There's more. According to court documents, that was when Prieto also explained why he wanted to carry out the proposed attack in Atlanta, saying, quote, "The reason I say Atlanta, why is Georgia such a blank up state now? When I was a kid, that was one of the most conservative states in the country. Why is it not now? Because as the crime got worse in LA, St. Louis, and all these other cities, all the blanks moved out of those places and moved to Atlanta. That's why it isn't so great anymore. And they've been there several years," end quote. The coldness of this. I have a question for conservatives. If your fight is so righteous, if you are on the right side of ethics and morality, let me ask you a question. Why do you produce so many mass shooters? Why is it that mass shooters in America are typically white males who identify as Christian evangelicals, conservative voters, Christian values? He also wanted to perform the proposed attack at a rap concert because, quote, "there will be a high concentration of African Americans at the event." Part of the plan included leaving Confederate flags to send a message, quote, "that we're going to fight back now, and every whitey will be the enemy across the whole country," according to the affidavit. Prieto also told the confidential source and undercover agent that he would show no mercy, no quarter, telling them that they could not have any feeling. They're not people, excuse me, they're monsters as far as I'm concerned, end quote. While under surveillance in February, the FBI saw Prieto go to a gun show in Phoenix, Arizona. While there, he was seen going into the gun show with 2 rifles and walking to the confidential informant's vendor booth. When he got to the booth, he immediately asked if the source and the undercover agent were still planning to participate in his attack the affidavit says. On multiple occasions, the affidavit notes that Prieto made it clear the attack was racially motivated and that he wanted it to be explicitly not a gang-related thing, saying he planned to shout, quote, KKK all the way, among other slogans, and emphasizing that having a high body count of victims was the most important part of his plan. According to court documents, in February, he sold a firearm to the undercover agent for $2,000. Now, there's more to this story, but understand, he's saying he wants it to be crystal clear. This was not some random attack. This was not some kind of retaliation. This was not gang related. He wants it to be clear that it's from the KKK, which ironically is a gang also. He wants to litter the scene with Confederate flags. He wants to yell racial slurs during the attack in order to create a race war in the United States of America prior to the presidential election. Why? According to his logic, it would give a Donald Trump presidential administration, if Trump wins, everything they need in order to enact martial law and do as they please. There's more. Later, in March, undercover agents spoke to Prieto at his vendor table at a gun show, where he told them he still planned to commit the attack in Atlanta, saying that if they waited until after the presidential election, they might have everything in place. You can't even drive. You'll be stopped, the documents say. He later told the undercover agents that the targeted event will likely be a rap concert scheduled for State Farm Arena in Midtown Atlanta for May 14th and 15th. He did his research. Later, plans involved pushing the attack back sometime in June, according to the Department of Justice. While traveling to Florida to visit his mother, the DOJ said officers stopped Prieto on Interstate 40 in mid-May. Quote, Prieto was stopped by law enforcement driving east from Arizona through New Mexico alongside Interstate 40. Prieto was in possession of seven firearms. Why do you need 7 guns to see your mama? He was in possession of 7 firearms and was taken into federal custody. Law enforcement then executed a search warrant at his home in Prescott. Law enforcement found more firearms in his residence, including an unregistered short barrel rifle. United States Department of Justice said in a statement, now indicted Prieto faces charges for firearms trafficking, transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime, and possession of an unregistered firearm. Justice officials said each conviction for trafficking firearms and transfer of firearms or a hate crime carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison, a fine of $250,000 or both. A conviction for possession of an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, a fine of $250,000 or both. Separately, each charge could also result in a maximum of 15 years in federal prison. Being convicted of possessing an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, $250,000 fine. A trial date has not been determined. So what you got? You have a mentality. Don't think this is a one-off. Don't think he's the only person thinking this way. As a matter of fact, we've covered other individuals who attempted things like this coming out of the state of Florida. I remember vividly reporting on a group of individuals who coordinated in order to start a race war by way of a unified attack at various locations at the same time. That operation was also stopped by law enforcement. Now, the charges that he currently has, some of them may actually get dropped. You see, the way the laws work, the states, conservative states in particular, they've gone out of their way to make sure that it's very difficult to prosecute individuals on gun laws. It's clear what he was trying to do. If the narrative is correct, if the words and terminologies that he used are accurate, he wanted to start a race war. He wanted to kill a lot of people. But you know what charge is not here? Criminal conspiracy. You know why? Well, I believe the Justice Department had to make a decision. When he was traveling to go see his mother, what was to stop him from deciding on the way to Florida to stop by Atlanta? Nothing. You have to effect an arrest. You effect an arrest now, you get him off the street, you get him indicted for what you can, but you lose your grand slam charge, which is criminal conspiracy. You don't have that on the docket because you would have to have a meeting of minds for the criminal conspiracy charge to fit. Which also means he gets lawyered up, he gets a conservative judge, he may get to go home. I'm telling you the truth, the reality of what is before us. These individuals are terrorists. Donald Trump is in charge of the largest modern day cult we've ever seen. Without his say-so, without his approval, without him telling them to storm the Capitol, they're already willing to kill human beings. Yasmin, thoughts here?
Yeah, so I was curious as to why this Arizona man wanted to start a race war on the other side of the country from where he was. So I started wondering if maybe there just weren't enough Black people where he lived to go to war against. So I looked into it. As of just a few years ago, there was not a huge Black population in Arizona. They made up only, 4 or 5% of the population in that state, according to the 2020 census. But since the pandemic, a lot more Black people have been moving to the state, specifically to Phoenix, which is Maricopa County, which is the state's largest county. And that could help to explain why Maricopa County has flipped from red to blue in recent years. And it could also help to explain why election officials in Arizona have tried so hard to invalidate election results from that specific county. So, one of the nation's most problematic counties has been seeing an influx of Black people over the past few years, and the MAGA Republicans in that state are also, perhaps disproportionately, worried about the US-Mexico border. We know that Arizona has some of the most vocal MAGA advocates in the country, but the numbers don't really show a large Republican majority in that state. Republicans in Arizona only have a slight lead over registered Democrats in that state. Remember, they elected a Democratic governor in Arizona. They also sent what they thought was a progressive Democrat to the Senate. She turned out not to be, but that's who they thought they were getting. So if this guy is trying to start a race war, I guarantee you it's because he believes in things like the Great Replacement Theory. He was spouting QAnon talking points. He even admitted that he doesn't see Black people as actual human beings. I guarantee you that he saw the demographics in his state shift and that he found all kinds of reasons to believe what he already wanted to believe, that a race war was coming. So he might as well be on the offensive line instead of playing defense against it. But also he probably didn't want a race war where he lived because that would be very inconvenient. So he targeted a place where he knew a lot of Black people would live. It's unheard of.
It's quite insane. It is sick. It is our reality today.